It's the season of love. Oh, isn't love wonderful? I am taping this in February, as you can see from all the hearts on my shirt, that we are pretty near Valentine's Day. And, love is amazing. And love at work is where we kind of meet a lot of our partners, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, our spouses. Uh, and it's important that we realize that, hey, this is kind of a part of, you get a group of people together, and some people are gonna just pair off. And it is great when it all works out and everybody's having fun. But then sometimes it can be a bad romance. It can interfere with the workplace. It could interfere with relationships. It can interfere with productivity. And sometimes just things are going on that shouldn't be going on. So that's what we're going to talk about today, when work romance becomes a bad romance and your problem as a leader or business owner. If you're new to the channel, thanks for joining us at Lunch Bites and Leadership Insights. My name is Stacey Oliver Canepa, and my goal is to help you solve a business problem with your people practices or maybe your processes within 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes or less while you're on your lunch break. I know when I was in a operation that I just didn't have a lot of time. I imagine you don't either, and that's why I'm here to help. And also, so years ago, I wrote a book with a lot of great fellow HR authors called Compassionate Work. And we explore all kinds of HR topics today. Compassionate work is great, but sometimes there's just a little too much passion at work. And passion can be a fickle friend. So let me give you my best tips to help you manage maybe an environment where a relationship is just getting out of control and it's affecting not just the two people involved, employees involved, but it's also affecting your work environment. So let's get to it. Grab your sandwich and here we go. Now, before I get to my tips, I do want to kind of share some stories that kind of make this real life. So what happened to me, I was a young person. I was in my early 20s and I worked at Disney World in hotel operations. So I worked at the front desk and concierge. And many of us were college age. We might not have been a part of the college program, but we were college age. And I started dating somebody. And it was great at first, and we were technically in separate areas. He was at the front desk and I was a concierge, so we didn't interact every day. But that was fine. But then as time went on, we broke up. Oh, the drama. It was just awful and painful. The bad part is that one, we could talk to each other through our computer systems. Even back then, we kind of had an instant messaging system. So we're typing all frantically, not very nice things to each other, not realizing like we do now, but those things are, they stay with you forever. That was one part that wasn't so bad. Our emotions are getting high at work and we're probably not doing our jobs as good as we could. The second thing is that he did overtime in my area, and we sometimes had to work together on a shift, and we even actually worked a buffet together, and we would just kind of have fights. Now, we wouldn't do it in front of the guest, but we were definitely making it unpleasant for everybody around us who was working with us. And I'm surprised we didn't have a food fight because we were just so passionate and so young, you're just silly and you got all these kinds of immature feelings coming up. And what happened is obviously everybody was noticing, our fellow cast members were noticing, and our leader was noticing. And the bad thing about that is that I didn't think we were being noticed, and he didn't either. He's a pretty passionate guy now. I'm still great friends with him. But she brought me into her office, and I first thought it was us together, but now I'm remembering it was me alone. She brought me into the office and she talked to me and she said, "This has got to stop." And she was really blunt with me that everyone's noticing and you need to stop it. And if you can't stop it, we're going to have to separate you two further. Now, this was shocking to me because, of course, I think when you're involved in these relationships, you think you're being so clever and discreet. You never are. I was highly embarrassed. I was obviously not the professional reputation I wanted to bring forth, even when I was so young. And we did, of course, eventually, quickly, I think, shut it down after that. But then we were able to carry on later. So that's one way it works out. The other things that I've seen affairs, I have seen people do all kinds of crazy behaviors. And really, it's not, like with us, they didn't really care what was going on with us romantically, how our relationship was going. What they cared about is that how it was involving the workplace and affecting everyone around us. All right, so that was a short story kind of showing, illustration what it looks like. Now, let me get you those tips of how to solve it. Some what my leader did, and some things I would ask you as a business consultant, or if I lived in your company, your HR partner. Okay, I want to set some ground rules though before I tell you the number one thing that I would ask you about is that I am talking about a consensual relationship between peers. I am not talking about a subordinate to supervisor, or actually supervisor to subordinate relationship. Certainly not talking about sexual harassment here. I'm talking about it's two people, peer level. They are adults. They're both over the age of 18, and that it's a consensual relationship. Right? Okay. So now that we've got that, that's our baseline. My number one thing is I'm going to ask you is who is it? And what is the behavior that is not acceptable? So how this usually goes down is that you as a leader, you hear about it. Someone brings it to your attention. And they're bringing it to your attention. One, they're either bringing it to you as gossip. If it's gossip, you simply just say, hey, look, what they do in their private life is, it doesn't matter to us. You just need to do your work. The second way it kind of pops up is that it's affecting how they are at work. So how this behavior can come out is like with me and my former relationship. We were being very hostile at work, creating a rough environment for everybody around us. But how it also can come out is that they're just kind of spending a little too much time together. In these open floor workspaces we have, it can be that they are just kind of floating to each other a little more than possible. They may ask the supervisor to take their breaks together so they can do maybe unsavory things and on property. Seen that before. Or they're just the productivity is slowing down because they are, in love and they're daydreaming. Oh my gosh, love is so wonderful and daydreaming is so wonderful. But when it's taking over and you're not getting your work done anymore, that becomes a problem. So those are the things. I'm looking at my notes every once in a while, make sure I grab everything. So who is it and what does it look like and why is it disruptive? Because really you don't care what people do in their personal lives. That sounds a little harsh, but I think you know what I'm saying is that what people do in their personal lives, you really want them to do well in their personal lives because they tend to be better at work or have a better time at work. So what happens beyond their time in the office or at the workplace, it doesn't really matter to you. You care about when it's showing up at work and especially showing up in a negative place. So, and usually when things go good, it's a little bit more daydreaming. It's when things go bad that things start getting really out of control. The gossiping happens. Again, like I said, I'm looking at my notes. People making people taking sides and against us and against them stuff. So what I would do, if it's at the executive level and they're my peer, I would certainly talk to them. They think they're being way more discreet than they are. How this affects executives is that it really hurts your reputations. You want to be seen as a person of integrity, not taking sides, not, even when it's peer-to-peer relationships, you can be perceived as taking their side, like when you're in a meeting, that kind of thing. And you just want them to know that there's gossip going around. Now, you don't want to tell them who told you. You want to remain integrity, discreet, confidentiality, but you do want them to know that, hey, this is out there, and you might want to think about how you want to change it. If it's a junior level, certainly coach them on them if they're doing immature behaviors and that this is affecting their reputation, like it was with me, and coach them through it. And then ask the question, you want to put it back on them. What can you do to make sure that your relationship is not affecting your work environment or affecting everybody else? So you put it back on them. Again, you're not going to get into the nitty gritty of the relationship itself because honestly, you don't care, but you do want it to put it back on them. How are you going to change this behavior? Like you do with anything. And I think those two things, if you do those, you're already going to kind of get in front of it, let people know that you're aware, stay appropriately out of their business, but make sure the work environment is great for everybody. All right, next step that you've done the initial thing that, we've had that conversation. The next thing that I'm going to ask you about, either as a business consultant or if I was in your environment with as an HR partner, I would ask you, what does your handbook say about this? So first of all, you do have a handbook, right? I know so many small businesses, it's something that you want to do, but you just haven't got around to do it. It's something certainly I can help you with, and I've helped other businesses with. But what does your handbook say about relationships at work of the romantic nature? So, there's a couple of things. One, as I mentioned before, supervisor to subordinate, that's almost always out. As you can see, that can just produce a lot of conflict. It's, giving somebody better, access to resources, giving them promotions. And that's something too that can easily lead to sexual harassment because when things go bad, just things kind of get muddy and gross. So supervisor, subordinate, usually blanket across out. So if you become aware of that, then you got to do something about that. Now that one's pretty heavy. Some things that are kind of common are disclosure of romantic relationships. I don't know about that. I kind of think that that's a little overkill because as an HR person, I have enough paperwork and whatnot, and as a leader, you have enough stuff to do. And when I was a leader, I had enough stuff to do that I'm not sure that was really good use of my time. But there are out there, if that is a part of your handbook, you do want to enforce it though. You do want to be sure that you've got the proper acknowledgments out there. Another thing though, that even if you don't have the disclosure relationship thing, the broader thing is, like I was getting to, it's the behaviors and how they're acting at work. Those usually go over or start applying to your general workplace conduct, right? So there's all things, kind of behaviors we expect in the workplace. We expect people to, be on time. We expect people to generally be pleasant. We expect people not to steal. We expect people to do their job. So those usually fall under your general conduct guidelines. And a lot of this can be addressed through that. So if you're struggling, like, hey, we don't have anything about romantic relationships. Again, you don't really care that it's a romantic relationship. You care about what's going on. So I'm going to ask you about that. And the critical part of this is that you certainly want to be sure you're addressing both parties fairly. And what that could look like is, imagine you have two salespeople that are having a consensual relationship and they're in the same territory. One's very successful. One is not very successful, or let's just say they're less successful. You become aware of this relationship. It's causing issues, inappropriate behavior. So you decide as a company that you want to move the less successful person out of the territory. Now, they're not necessarily a bad salesperson, but you just want to move them out of that territory so you structurally break up the relationship. Now, this could seem that you are punishing the second person. And I think you can see, if you've been in business ownership for any time, that's the stuff that starts getting you in trouble, is when you're seen as treating the parties differently. That is, you're somewhat doing discrimination, but you don't feel like you're doing discrimination because you're just trying to solve a problem. So that's really where it can get you into issues, is that you're following the guidelines, you're trying to deal with it, but you inadvertently punish one party more than the other party. So watch out for that. So follow your guidelines in your handbook, and that'll get you on a good path of what to do next. So to wrap up this episode of Lunch Bites and Leadership Insights, the easiest thing to do is to discreetly and individually bring it to the party's attentions, focus on the behavior, and then get them to, reconcile it themselves. And if it goes to something else, then you certainly want to, if you go down the discipline path, you certainly want to talk to your HR partners. You may even need to seek legal counsel, because I have seen it where people have, they've embellished expense reports to pay for dates. Yeah, that wasn't fun dealing with that. People are having physical relationships on their lunch hours, which in itself, that may not be a problem. It may be a problem. I don't know. But yeah, always focus on the behavior and the performance. And when you do that, you get yourself in a good spot, because really that's what you want. You just want everyone to have a great time at work and enjoy what they do and deliver great results. And that's always going to focus on behaviors and performance. So I hope this helped. Love is in the air, and when love is great, it's fantastic. But when you have a bad romance, it can cause you a lot of pain. I want you to not have that pain. Have you ever had this happen at work? Leave a comment below, and if it was you, tell the story. They're always interesting in hindsight. If you saw it happening somewhere else, I'd love to hear that as well. And as always, please subscribe. That can help me make content for you, and like the video. So, love to hear your comments. I wish you the best and enjoy the rest of your lunch. Have a great day.